The following is a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club. Players from 9 nations converge in St. Louis as USChessChamps.com presents the second annual Summer Chess Classic.
Hello and welcome back to round 5 of the Summer Chess Classic here in St. Louis. Today, of course, is round 5, meaning it's the last round before the rest day starting tomorrow. So probably going to see some fatigue from the players, but maybe some will get a second wind, knowing that tomorrow is their glorious day off for rest and maybe some preparation going into the second half. Let's take a look. Well, first of all, my name is Caleb Denby, and this is GM Jesse Kraai. And we will be your hosts for today, as we have been for the past 4 days. And why don't we just take a look right at the standings in Group A?
Well, we can get the standings in a second.
Yeah, so maybe in a
we'll
second.
Talk about
of course,
that in a second.
The story is Jeffrey Zhang and David Howell leading Group A going into today. Which players has impressed you more throughout this tournament, Jesse?
Oh, they're both very impressive. I would say, I was thinking about this earlier today, I think Jeffrey is the best calculator of the entire tournament. And I've just seen him analyze some, and I guess I know as well that he's one of these puzzle rush freaks, that he can do it all. But he's made some funny moves positionally, I thought, in this game, coming out from an opening that was pretty good. Maybe we'll just start with this game, and then we'll jump to the standings after.
We can just jump into the game.
So, it was one of these things that I'm really interested with. We're going to get Howell someday in here and talk to him about it. So Jeffrey plays e4, and Howell just starts thinking, just like deep philosophical thoughts about what to do, and
pondering the eternal question.
Well,
how do you respond?
He did the same thing when he played Sam in round 1, and then ended up choosing the Berlin. And here he chooses the Petrov, and I'm not exactly sure, but I think Jeffrey was encouraged to do this because he felt maybe like Black didn't know the coming ending.
And this is an opening line that saw play in the World Championship.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And I think it's very clever. The idea is you threaten d5, knight d5, and then you play f3. And it might look kind of weird at first, but your d-pawn kind of wants to go to d4, so you don't really want to play d3.
Right.
And the king, I think, wants to go to f2, though apparently I have a disagreement with Jeffrey on that score because he does not move the king to f2. And it's funny because there's some similarities with yesterday's game which Jeffrey had against Darrow, where he had c6 and did not play king c7, and here he does not play king f2. But I thought he got a nice opening advantage here, and I think if White plays just king f2, he's got just a little bit better of a position, especially because this knight is dominated by the pawn. And he's got a little bit of opening, a development advantage too. But he plays this move, which I think is controversial, just because there's no need yet to be pushing all your stuff. Bishop d6, and now another controversial move, knight c3. This one controversial because the knight, it's not clear that the knight wants to go there. In particular, if you were going to kick this guy, then maybe you wanted at least the option of throwing the pawn to c4 to fight for the d5 square. But now that's gone, and this knight is going to have to work to find a home. It's hard. It's like moving into domination.
Maybe it was a question of, do you want to block the c-pawn or do you want to block the dark-scored bishop, right? This option at least lets Jeffrey develop his dark-scored bishop.
Well, he could have also said, hey, let's play king f2 because Kraai told me that's what I'm supposed to do. But, and this would have left way more options on the table. But again, like, what was the rush in playing g4 in the last move?
Yeah.
They say mistakes come in pairs, and so this might be an example of that. By the way, I didn't look on the computer or anything. That's just my take, that those two moves were a little bit funny. Black's next move definitely is a star move, and he plays h5, And all of a sudden, the light squares are going to become weak because g5 is forced, and black's going to lose a little bit of time. But one of the genius things about this is not only do we gain this square, but since the knight on f6 was dominated, it makes sense to begin some plan where you have to move him anyway, right? So knight g8, castle's a little bit weird, right? I wanted to put him on f2. Knight e7 and rook e1. And here I felt black was definitely better, but maybe the next move let white a little bit off the hook. So I think, for example, if you just played knight d7 and f8 and concentrate on these beautiful light squares that you've won, looks like an advantage, especially because this guy's so terrible now.
Yeah, maybe Jeffrey was thinking he could go to a4 and then put that knight on c5, maybe.
I don't know. Knight a4, okay. You're dominated with b6 as well. So.
I guess so.
Anyways, the problem with bishop f5 is not immediately apparent, but it is that after this trade happens, bishop f4 is going to come, and it's going to make it difficult for the black king to move, right? So we get knight d7, bishop f4, and now I think white is close to equality because the king, it would love to hang out there, but it's got some issues now. And king f8 is a little bit sad because that was really the square I wanted my knight to go to, right? Okay, so Jeffrey says, all right, I'll fix the knight. All right, I'll fix my pawn. All right, I'll trade this terrible thing. And in this position, I don't know, it feels roughly equal to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would agree. You know, the 4 versus 4 on the queen's side and 3 versus 3 on the king's side with only knights and rooks. It doesn't look like a lot, right?
And I think a big mischance for Howell. This position I thought was very nice with g5, and in a way I feel like it's a Berlin player's thought with the light square, because that, you know, in the Berlin you coax him to play e5 to get the f5 square, and here we've coaxed him to play g5 to get the f5 square. So we'll keep our eye on that, but I guess that's going to be a draw. So maybe now we can look at the standings.
Yeah, let's take a look and see where everybody stands in Group A. So, of course, Jeffrey Zhang and David Howell are tied at the top. These two players are both +1 on the tournament, and they face each other today in what looks like an equal position. Following them close behind is Darius Sweerts and Gawain Jones. And rounding out Group A, but still quite within striking distance, is Liam Lee and Sam Shankland, two of the top seeds coming into the tournament.
Right.
And let's actually go ahead and take a look at Group B now. Group B used to just be Surya Ganguly up at the top, but he's had a slow couple last rounds with 2 draws, and Grigory Oparin has actually caught him up at the top. And now I want to ask you again, which of these players do you have your eye on? Who's your pick to pull ahead in this event?
Well, I think Ganguly's been playing. I'm very impressed with his play. And Oparin, I'm trying to get a read on the guy. He plays, you know, knight f3, g3, bishop g2, and he's like a sneaky player. And honestly, you know, in terms of just raw talent and like hope, Sevian has always been there. And that's since I met the kid in 2012. You know, I've always thought that guy was coming up, and like Jeffrey Zhang, he's, you know, struggling to break into 2,700, and it is brutally hard. Brutally hard. Maybe we could let's start maybe with Sam's game even there.
Sure, I guess we could jump into Sam's
game.
game.
Okay, let's go to C first, sure.
But yeah, first let's see how the C group is standing today. So Arturs Nixons has pulled ahead of the crowd with 3 points. However, he is followed closely behind by 4 players in the field, all tied for second place. And there are quite a number of players hoping to strike at the top, and today I think is going to be the chance to do that. They kind of need to have somebody pull ahead of the other 3 in order to give Arturs a little bit of a challenge for the top place. And rounding out Group C is, of course, Christian Chirilla. And before we jump into the games, let's take a quick look at the tournament format and see what kind of format these players are playing in. There are 3 6-player double round robins, which means in each of the 3 groups, everybody plays all of the opponents twice. And the time control for these games is 90 minutes for the first 40 moves, with 30 minutes sudden death for the remainder of the game. They are given a 30-second increment from move 1, and there's a 30-move draw rule in effect, so no draws before move 30. And the schedule for the event is quite important here today because it is the last day before the rest day. So tomorrow, the players get a day off, the commentators get a day off, and we'll come back refreshed and ready for more exciting chess on Monday. You can join us here on YouTube as for the broadcast. You can chat along with us. We're keeping an eye on that. See Patrick Daly in there. He's a regular, I think, on these broadcasts. You can join us on Twitter using the hashtag #SummerChessClassic, and you can follow the games for yourself online on uschesschamps.com. And now let's take a look at the pairings for Group B, since we already kind of took a look at what's going on in Group A. So Daniel Friedman and Hovhannes Kabuzian have actually drawn their game already today. Daniel has been playing very, very solidly this tournament. It's tough to score a point off him, and he continues that trend today. Sam Sevian is paired against Igor Kovalenko, and then our key matchup in Group B is between Grigory Oparin and Surya Ganguly. The two leaders are squaring off today in Group B. So let's go ahead and take a look at that game and see how they're faring.
Yeah, this has been an interesting game. I have felt for the last 20 moves or so that I thought Ganguly was better, and the problem that plagues White, has been plaguing White, is still there for him, which is that this bishop has been a little bit awkward in terms of what to do with the guy, and the queen is penetrated. However, there's some obvious thoughts for White too, if this bishop can ever get active, and it's also a question of, like, are these pawns ever going to become weak? So let's maybe take a look at, let's look at Oparin's style, right? He's been doing this all the time, and you know, I think originally back in the day when people played G3 and Bishop G2, they did so with the thought of, like, oh, I just want to get a non-theoretical game and I want to play. But actually now Oparin is very booked up on all the different, like, setups that Black can play. So it's not actually a you know, getting yourself out of dodge moment with the theory. But we get this, and I would say, I guess, let's say C4 is the main move, but I think Ganguly was at least making him wonder if on C4 he was going to take DC. That was a question he was throwing out there. Now after B3, I like a lot what Ganguly does. He plays A5. And to me, this is kind of a classic positional notion. If I could, maybe I'll just go back and say there was a famous game. I'm going to get it a little bit. Yeah, there's a famous game which went like this in the Botvinnik Tall match. It went. I might get the move order a little bit wrong, but it's all the same. So C4, C6, B3, knight E4, D4. And this is a fascinating position where Black has a lot of different options. You can imagine, you know, of course you can castle first, but then there's going to be things like knight D7, F6, bishop F5. But when you start looking at those minor piece movements, it's not necessarily clear that they know yet where they want to go. Okay. So a great plan is probably castles first. Let's say castles, bishop B2, and now A5. And the cool point is, you know, we don't know yet what White's going to do against our A-pawn. But what we're going to say is, you know, first of all, my bishop will be developed if my rook is developed. And we're just going to wait a little bit with the knight, right? So that's kind of what happens here in this game with A5, A4, and yeah, I like Black.
Yeah, just finding a lot of counterplay on the open A file.
And this isn't a standard Oparin move. He's just going to take it easy. He's just going to take it easy. Black says, okay, I'll put my queen over here on A5. I thought he was a little bit better. So, right, because the bishop, because the A file. And here we're starting to get the dynamic we're going to see in the game where Black is going to say that the double pawns aren't that big of a deal, and that the bishop on A1 is terrible. Queen A2. Maybe there's other moves. I have a feeling if we ask Ganguly, that might be one of the moves he has maybe regrets about. But this is all pretty normalish looking. And we get this position where we are right now. And about equal time. So we'll pay attention to this game. Huge for the standings, and also just a really interesting positional struggle. I assume Black is considering knight e5 now, and amongst other things. And if Black is going to claim he's better, he needs to figure this guy out. And he can't give White much time, because if White gets time to do things like g5 and queen g4, then we will have some grief.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe the doubled pawns aren't so much weak in themselves, but they kind of weaken Black's king as well, right? So there's going to be some danger there, maybe.
Let's look at what happened.
Sure.
Knight e5,
It's
bishop
95
b1,
played.
queen a3, bishop d2, knight f7.
Keeping an eye on that g5 square.
Yeah, and try, really making a claim that the b pawn, that White is tied down to the b pawn. But in order to really make progress, Black's going to have to do something like e5. I don't know.
Yeah.
But once he does that, though, then, the cat is out of the bag. Then it's all...
Then it's go time.
And maybe actually a move for White is maybe thinking about now is f4. Hoping to break open the light squares with f5.
Absolutely.
So while I like the Ganguly's position before for sure, now I don't know who's better now.
Yeah, there's some ideas for both sides, I guess.
It's really a question of, can Oparin make this bishop a genius or not? I think f4 looks real strong. I don't know, maybe knight d6, but still f5.
He's trying to hold on, but I'm not convinced.
I have a feeling they're probably both already seen this variation, and then maybe something like snip. And if we take it all off, it's not that special.
Okay.
Like queen here. But this guy's still miserable.
Black's still left, or White's still left with that bishop, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
do you want to take a look at what's going on in the C group?
Sure. Actually, before we leave that, let's go to
Sure.
Samuel's game real quick. Samuel's had a really interesting position. I'm sure both sides have made mistakes or inaccuracies, whatever you want to call it. But this was another game. This is where I'm up there, and I'm like, is Kovalenko not coming or something? Because there's no movement. Or maybe the board's frozen. But no, he thought for, 20 minutes after e4.
Wow.
Sam doesn't usually play e4, and so he's just like, I'm going to tank on this one. He eventually plays e6, which I think is what he normally does. And Sam also plays the French. So maybe that was part of the thinking. And Kovalenko's like, I don't want to face it. So I'm going to guess that Kovalenko, in his mind, when he'd made this decision, decided to go for this following sideline. I'm going to call it a sideline here with queen a4. And the idea is just to be annoying, to stop a4, and at some point maybe shut it all down with c4. White has many moves here. Queen g4 is the most aggressive. I think I might have even been at this club. Lenderman was black and played king f8 against Fabi. But g6 is the other option. And g6, there's both moves, king f8 and g6, have drawbacks. And g6, of course, the problem is h4.
Yeah, it gives White a hook.
And this is a very violent game, because what White is saying is, I'll let you take the pawn. And although the pawn itself isn't that big of a deal, what's really nice for Black is that he gets to go back to help defend the king. So knight c6, h5, queen c2, knight f3. And that move surprised me at first, but it's grown on me.
Okay.
It's grown on me. I think there were other things Black could have done too. As a French player, I never really want to do that move. But what it's going to say is, by keeping your bishop off of this point, I'm going to be able to easily hold this thing. I think this was right here White's big choice. he could have played snip. Even that endgame, I think, isn't very nice for white. He could, even play that, or of course, that's the most very natural. What he did looked like, let's call it the standard white attacking move, but check out what black found a great plan in response. Bishop d7, rook h3, and here's the real star move. I thought this was genius. h6.
Wow.
This is the kind of thing I get excited about. H6. So when you play g6, part of the problem when you play g6 is you've weakened squares like g5. And h6 does two things. It, of course, stops the knight, and it gives your queen this nice retreat square. Stops the knight and the bishop, because both of those pieces wanted to invade the dark squares. So I thought h6 was genius. Rook g3, queen h7, and now bishop d1. And I think this is black's big question for himself. He plays kind of a strange move here with rook f8. My sense is, just intuitively, is that knight e7 is going to be better for black. Do I know that for sure? No, but I feel like feels it because white has to play like rook c1, then bishop c2, and I'm ready to play rook g8 and knight f5, and some days I might even play queen e4. Anyways, rook f8. I think he maybe underestimated this move. Because it does look weird, knight h4. He's thinking that he wants, I'm guessing he wanted to play either f6 or f5, but now the knight is hitting this square. Plus, when this knight comes out, which I guess it kind of has to now, because we are threatening knight g6, now the knight has a job as well, is that he's stopping this. So now rook f8 looks like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have even done that.
Well, you can still try to play something like f6 or f5, right?
It's difficult.
Okay.
Difficult, because unless you win the pawn, this is, you got to be real careful about opening those dark squares.
Yeah.
Rook c1, knight f5, and we get this position, and I think maybe it's roughly equal or something, but this is very dangerous for black. I've suffered a lot in the French, and the bummer here is really still the dark squares. Can black and white invade, and is this queen not going to be able to help her man over there? So queen h4, and now he goes for it with snip. He had other things to do, but he did that one. Snip, 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 and very hard position for me to evaluate. But the claim is simple. The claim is that we got our pawn back, and that our bishop is better than your knight, this one is better than this knight, and this bishop is better than this bishop. So, the problem for white is, can he activate his rook? It looks hard. It looks hard to activate the rook. If he can find a way to activate the rook here, then I'll believe in white. But it looks
Difficult
like
position.
black has something kind of like a fortress now.
All right.
Okay, beautiful.
All right, and let us actually go now to the C group
Let's go to
pairings
C group,
and see how they are faring. Christian Trilla is paired against Aram Hakobian. Gordievsky drew his game against Group C leader Artur's Nixons, so maybe that left the door open for one of those other three followers to catch up. And the game we're going to keep our eye on is the game between Brandon Jacobson and Elshan Muradiabadi. Both of these players on 2 out of 4 and hoping to score a win today to make it to the top. Brandon himself has actually led Group C before, and Elshan has had some chances in his games but hasn't been able to quite pull it off. So let's see what's going on with both of these players in round 5.
Yeah, Boy Genius is really playing a great game so far. And right, if he wins this game, he'll catch Nixon's. And here, let's start with this position with knight f5. You know, they did their standard e4, e5 dance, right? And they reached this position. And to me, black can't be that bad here. It's just hard for me to believe he's in any kind of real trouble because the rook on a1's funny and yada yada. But white is holding like some daggers over black's head. In particular, like, is bishop h6 a threat? And so that's one of the things he's got to figure out right now. And I guess he didn't, because what happened was snip, snip, knight f8, and then Brandon immediately went bam.
Wow, there it is.
And it wasn't immediately obvious to me what the idea is, but it's pretty clear cut when you look at it. So snip, snip. Let's say one of these knights to h7. Of course, this knight was hanging, right?
Mm-hmm.
So knight g5, and the threat, which isn't immediately obvious, and maybe Elshon missed, is that we're going to play knight h7. Let's say, for example, ed. Knight h7, knight h7, f6. And that's serious grief. We got a lot of threats there. And this kind of end, I wouldn't even call it an endgame. That's just going to be lost because your you're going to get mated.
Mm.
So that was a beautiful shot. And, one thing I'll say about these openings is, let's just take this position, for example, the slow piano. It's a funny thing. It's equal, but if you're an attacking player, like a lot of these e4 people are, you can play this position with an attack in your soul, even though it might not feel like there's an attack immediately. But you have to be patient and create moves like knight f5, where black is under pressure, and there had to be, I'm going to guess there had to have been something else than what he did. But after this, bam. And so when Elshon played this, it felt a little bit like I'm resigning, like black's resigning, because the problem is, okay, yes, I'm up a pawn, and yes, I have the two bishops now. But like this knight, I don't know what he wants.
Yeah, that's difficult. The pawn on f5 just actually taking some very important squares away from that knight.
And the knight, like, where is he ever going to go?
Yeah.
Elshon makes a threat that looks kind of like mate, and then rook g1, rook h1. And now he's going to, he's going in desperation mode. Now, I will say, these positions aren't just totally easy to win. You still have to have a lot of skill. And Jacobson has 6 minutes left. By the way, I want to say, Brandon, you made fun of me for going too slow when we played Bughouse together. But every game I see you, you're in time pressure, buddy.
Time pressure.
So you better hurry it up.
So far, he's picked up the pace when it counts, though.
The kid is one of these people that can move instantly. This is, I like the way Elshon at least is trying to hold on to this thing. The knight on f8, the guy who was on h7, at least has an idea now of doing something like that. So the game isn't actually over. Mm-hmm. And I think, you go back to this position, I feel like that's got to be totally over. But maybe now you need to start thinking of other things to do. Okay, this is what I don't understand. Let me just say it from a chess point of view.
All right.
I don't understand why you would tell yourself here that you want to start running the king to the queen side. You've got all those pawns in front of your king, dude. You're the master of that situation. So, knight f1 to knight g3.
Knight f1 looks very natural, but just from my point of view, I know I like to, when I have a pawn majority like this against my opponent's king, it's natural to me to want to move those even farther forward and start generating some threats.
But he needs to first fix his bros over here before you start doing all this stuff. True. And look no, I don't like this. No bueno, Brandon. No bueno. So now, we'll keep our eyes on it. I think anything's possible. And Elshon with b5 is simply saying, you know what, if you want to go to the queen side, we can open up that part of the board too. Yeah. So we got everything going on there. Let's look at Christian's game.
Sure. The other game in Group C still going on.
Chirilla, also known as the Count. And here was a funny thing, too, where Christian plays, he's been a big advocate for years of playing the Grunfeld. So he's now facing the Grunfeld and plays this sideline. Black plays c5, and instantly the Count goes like this. And Jacobian started tanking here, and the weird thing was that in this position, I feel like the Count didn't know quite what to do. I thought the Count's next move was very provocative. I think you could do things like Rook C3 or Rook C1, and it's mostly, I don't know, equal or something like that, but with interesting play. But the Count, now the Rook is not going to come back easily.
It's not a solid square, but it's certainly making more threats than it would on the c-file.
Yeah, but he needs to castle before he starts making threats. And here Black had a number of interesting moves. He ended up playing h6, but I thought also very tempting was just castles. Bishop d7 looked good. And I think the idea of h6 was that after this guy, well, let me put it this way. I think what he was thinking of is bishop d7, rook takes, and now you can't move the bishop yet. So you're going to have to do something like h6. Now, should you maybe be worried about the exchange sacrifice? Maybe. Maybe you should be worried about it. So I think that's what motivates this h6 move. But that gives Christian at least the chance to kind of sort of bail out with this move. Does it get him out of dodge completely? I don't think so, but let's look at what happened. Knight b4, rook c5, castles, queen a3, queen d2, a5, bishop b2, queen a2. Oh, we're doing this big dance here, right?
Yeah.
And Black is up a pawn. Obviously,
I don't know. It looks nice.
Looks nice, yeah. The problem is that the bishop on g7 isn't in the game. So, do I think Jacobian's better? He is, but it's not over yet. It's not over yet, yeah. So, actually, we got a couple more moves here.
Position?
We got knight c2 on the board. Check to the miserable king. Rook c8, knight e1. So knight c2, you didn't have to be played. It was a very forcing move. And yeah, Black is obviously...
It helps Black gain some time, right? With the king on f1, it's going to be a little bit harder to get the rook on h1 into the game.
You're going to lose some time too, though, because you've got to deal with your knight.
Right.
It looks real bad for the Count here. It just looks real bad because if nothing else, I can play bishop a4 if I need to, and the Count's got 2 minutes. So that's no good.
That is difficult stuff.
Well, let's go back up. Let's go back upstairs.
Yeah, Group A. Definitely a lot of action going on.
So Jeffrey, it's looking pretty drosh. I'd say, I watched Jeffrey analyze his game with Daro yesterday. He probably, he was either lost or very close to lost in that game. And I got a feel for how much he likes to calculate in the end game. So that was kind of interesting. And here, I think it's roughly equal. But, Jeffrey is not going to stop playing. And the dream, anyway, is to say something like, well, on rook f4, you have to worry about this square and this square. Mm-hmm. Is it a little bit of something? Maybe.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Definitely. Black, I'm sure, would be happy with a draw here. And I think White is the only one who kind of wants to keep playing.
Okay. He'll fight. He'll fight.
Fair enough.
One game we didn't talk about was this incredible struggle with Gawain and Leliem. And it was a very strange position from the start. And it's remains strange. It remains strange to me. Let me just
some powerful bishops.
Go through this thing. C3 is I'm going to say that C3 is the old way to play against with the old way to play the Rosalimo. Mm-hmm. D4, D5, E5, knight E4. And this is, I think, the reason why it's considered a bummer is that the knight gets on E4 and it's looking almost like you've got a great French now. Bishop E3, snip, snip. This just shows what I know. I thought Black was just beautiful here. Queen C1. And Black had a number of reasonable moves here. I was watching and I was like, why not just rook b8?
Yeah, just
rook b8.
hit that pawn.
But okay. F6, knight c3, and this is a really provocative move. bishop e6. It's the kind of move you do want to be careful about it because you're setting yourself up for all this stuff. So it doesn't work because we're hitting the knight, but still,
Yeah,
you're making me nervous.
some
over here.
danger.
Yeah, it makes me nervous. So white took, and I wanted him to play EF, but I think the problem is maybe then I can. Let me actually ask that question. So on EF, do I have a favorable version of this because the F file is closed? Maybe I do. Maybe I do. And here, in addition to d5, I can consider knight d2, but d5 here looks better than normal.
The danger is opening up that diagonal for the dark squared bishop, maybe, but...
I mean, even this position looks good.
Yeah,
because I'm coming
definitely.
with knight c4. So that's why bishop f6. Now, knight e5, rook a c8, and I like, this is old school, by the way, this queen c3. This is just the dark square grip that they teach you in your first wrestling class. Right, where we're touching all these squares and we're saying, yeah, that the grip is on the dark squares. And this bishop now has really turned into a beautiful piece on this diagonal, but also, of course, here. It's protecting really white's only weak point.
Putting that bishop on e6 has kind of become like a factory of threats for white. Every turn he can renew this threat and improve his pieces.
That's right, yeah. a5.
I've lost track of the tactics again. what if I...
If you play d5, the knight will end up falling.
Okay.
Like queen b8.
Queen b8. Okay, taking advantage of the pin.
These guys are crazy, right? Rook a c1, rook fd8, and it's going to get crazier. So this next move, I'm sure he did some he definitely did some crazy calculation, but it's really positional in nature. It's the dark square squeeze that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
Let's just actually pay homage to these moves. Queen c1, dark square. Queen c3, dark square. Queen c5, dark square. I got wasted one time by Jan Elvis doing this kind of thing to me, and to me it was just an epiphany that you could play chess like that. I was just like, wow. So here we go. Check this out. You know, good positional ideas need tactics behind them, and I'm pretty sure that white had the following figured out when he did this. Queen b2, knight c6, rook d6, and this is kind of a tactics trainer moment here, d5.
Yeah, dangerous stuff. I don't trust it for black.
So the point is that if you take this guy, well, unfortunately, then your rook's hanging after knight e7. And if you play rook takes, then again knight e7. And your king, it's your king that's got the grief in life. So really nice tactic, and he missed. I'm pretty sure Lelien missed some of this here because now he really started to tank. And of course, when you take on b2, that's kind of what you're thinking about. Is like, well, can he take on c6?
So d5, I guess you have to move the bishop.
He moves the king.
Moves the king.
So that now knight e7 isn't a check. Okay, so Gawain says, all right, I'll renew the threat on e7. And that looks pretty evil. Queen a6. Really nice play. Now I'm touching the rook on c8. Rook b1. Oh, man. Oh, this is really good. Look at this tactic. Queen a2, knight b4.
Oh, yeah, that's
old school right
tough.
there.
That's tough.
really rough. The backwards moves are the ones that are so hard to see.
It hurts.
Queen
to look
a3, knight a7. You know, okay, so the rook is hit and the bishop on e6 is
Really,
hit.
a great deal of finesse coming out here. Just white seems to be touching all of the sensitive points.
Wow, and look at it. So when the rook comes here, then there's this fork.
Oh my goodness.
So right, we move, and then we snip it. Wow. Look at this guy. Wow, we got to get that guy in here.
Yeah,
Get that guy in here.
Definitely
if we can.
an impressive sequence of moves there.
So I'm assuming this is toast now. If bishop b1, queen takes d7, black needs some kind of miracle now because, well, black's not even threatening anything, unfortunately, for the guy. And the black king is weaker. And it's hard to imagine that the a-pawn's going to do something here. So the attack is going to happen.
A bit too far away, maybe.
Also, just with the rooks, it's going to be such a... I guess we should say that White's main goal, I think, is to trade both these bishops and a rook, and then we'll get full access to the king. If Black manages to trade the queens, then maybe he's got a shot at holding this position.
I don't know, even that looks tough.
Okay.
So, maybe Goey and Jones threatening to join the leaders if Jeffrey's game ends peacefully.
All right, Sam.
So Sam Shanklin against Darius Sweets.
What do you got for us?
In Group A.
So this has been a real exciting struggle, and wow, maybe Sam is pressing a little bit here. One thing he did, so they did a little Catalan dance. Knight d7, d4, bishop b4, and I have done flavors of this move with knight bd2 myself. It is a strange move. Usually it goes like this. Bishop g2, excuse me. Normally you have to play d4 first, right? So d4, depending on the move order. Check to the miserable king, and now knight bd2. And the weird thing about this move is, I think it's technically unsound because of dc. How would it go? dc, bishop g2, c3. Actually, I won't call it unsound. I'll just say that you have compensation for the material that you've lost. Okay, but the problem that I couldn't figure out is when you do it, like Sam does it here, even if he doesn't take the pawn on c4, is your knight really that well placed on d2? Because the whole idea with his bishop b4 is to say that the bishop on d2 is misplaced. Right? That's the idea. And then you go back, and then we do a little dance, and then the bishop doesn't know what it's supposed to do in life. So anyways, we got this position. Black has many different moves here. c6, we'll call c6 the most standard looking. Snip, snip, knight e5, bishop b7, queen a4, a5. So, on the surface, it looks like mayhem, but it looks on the surface, too, like maybe Black's out of it. White has a bishop. Hard to say if that's important. Queen c4, bishop d2, rook a4, queen b3. And that was the first exact move. Well, not the only exact move Sam's played, but that's a very exact way to try to play for the advantage now, with rook ac1 being the threat.
Definitely the c7 pawn being the weak point in Black's camp here.
Right. So Darrow says, I'm going to snip, and I'm going to try to trade everything off. I would have been tempted by rook a8. Sam says, no, we're going to fight. And this is a very combative move because you're saying that Black can play rook a2 at some point.
Yeah,
c6.
so what I was always told about backwards pawns is that you need major pieces to really put pressure on them, especially on a half-open file. So I think Black was trying to trade some major pieces, but White keeps on the rook to put that pressure, but at the expense of some counterplay, right? So now Black can play something like you said, rook a2, getting his own ideas involved.
Right, and here was a question too. I'm assuming c5 runs into some kind of dc and b4 thing. That's my assumption. Okay, so c6. Now another nice move, bishop h3. This prevents the f6 knight from moving, which is a big deal because it wanted to go here. And it makes things, I think, like on rook a2 now, we can start thinking about this. And if king f8, we can start really thinking about that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh no. So, several very nice endgame moves here from Sam. h6, bishop b4. Beautiful move. And now, if you play rook a2, you better wonder about
Careful.
bishop a3.
Careful.
Sealing the box. So he goes rook e8. Now we'll take the a file. This is a beautiful endgame. Rook a7 is threatened, so he gets out of the way with bishop c6. b4. Rook a7. Big complications, but I guess we're going to say white's at least a little bit better. Yeah, Sam, you're playing well. Bam. Right, so Sam has played a great game, and here we're going to have to say he has both the pawn and the compensation in this position, right? He's got the better bishops, he's got the rook, the bishop on b4, the unopposed bishop hits e1, so there's no dastardly checks. Yeah, this is a bummer for black. So this is the kind of play that won Sam the U.S. Championship and that got him over 2,700 in the first place. Just very ruthless calculation, energy, some creativity.
Some precise moves as well, kind of putting his pieces on just the right square to control the important squares and kind of limit black's rook, especially, from getting into the position. I did want to mention, games are really heating up in Group B, it looks like. A lot of action going on there.
And before we leave, Sam, let's just note that rook c7, I was wondering, what is the idea? If nothing else, we can play rook c8 next move and just end all of the counterplay.
Wow.
So that's a problem. And if you leave the back rank with rook e2, you better wonder about bishop g6.
Yeah, definite mating nets.
So, beautiful play. We'll check in with that soon. Which game would you like to see first in Group B?
Let's take a look at Sam Sevian, because I think he did a really nice job of activating not his rook, but instead his king to make some more threats.
Yeah, okay, let's look. So we had this position. Rook f1. Bishop d1. Bishop c2. Right, we're going to talk to the f5 pawn. Rook b1. Forces him to do this, which he really doesn't want to do.
Yeah, it takes away any b4 ideas.
Now that's deep, rook d1.
I don't know, maybe just the classical idea of taking away squares for the knight, no matter what happens, right? Taking away that d2 square, the rook just controls all of the knight's forward hops.
I think actually the idea is that if you play bishop f4, you want to make sure b4 doesn't work.
So that as well, taking away the knight's pressure on d4.
King b6, I don't know what that move does. White has the luxury of, just moving back and forth a little bit, that's fine.
Taking some time.
And now he comes up, and it's still the same question.
Yeah.
Can white activate the rook? At the moment, it looks very difficult to do it, but...
So, I guess I have some questions, like, what if we play rook f1, and then maybe, not immediately, some idea with g4 to get the rook in the game?
I'm sure he's looking at it, But black, I don't know how it works yet, but yeah, that's what we have to look at.
Okay. Rook f1 is actually on the board, it looks like.
Yeah, rook f1 was just played. And black is going to have to sit. And one way to talk about this is when I thought black had a great position, and it was with this decision here, he begins the kind of descent to what we get now.
Right.
Where then he plays, knight g7, knight f5, and we get this structure which is just unpleasant. And in particular, the knight on b3 now isn't really working.
Yeah, it's a little out of the game way on the queen's side. I had one more idea. So what happens after bishop d1? Is there any way for the white king to make some inroads? Because bishop d1 forces the rook off of h5, and then maybe the king can come into g5.
It's a thought, and then there's going to be some kind of check on the g file.
Yeah, and maybe just king h4. And then I want to set up with the same kind of idea. I want to put my bishop on c2, have two attackers on f5, and maybe with the king's help, I can keep the rook from actually coming to the defense.
Yeah, you could totally think about it. The great news is this guy isn't helping. And black maybe should start thinking right now about bringing the guy back.
Knight a5 to c6, maybe then to e7. And that looks like a nice defensive try, given enough time.
Well, right, and white's going to need time to crack this business.
Mm-hmm.
So, but check it out. Once you go knight a5, c6, then you have to worry about rook b1.
Oh, yeah. Can't stray too far away.
So this is there's some good massage going on here.
Maybe if I'm black, I'd like to trade the places of, not exactly, of my king and my knight. I want my king to defend my b pawn, and I want my knight to defend my f
Yeah,
pawn.
if you could put your king here, you'd be winning.
Well, I'm not quite that ambitious, but maybe if I put my king on someplace like c6 and I got my knight to e7, if I could achieve that, then I'd be quite happy.
Yeah, something like that.
As it is, the king can't really help that f pawn.
The knight's terrible. I feel like that could be one of the things we ended up talking about too. Is like the knight b3 looked like the angry thing to do, and maybe you might regret it a little bit.
So what's going on in the game between the leaders in this section?
All right, let's
quite a bit has changed since we last took a look.
Oh man, all right, let's look. So we had knight f7, and I was talking about f4. Operin does a similar idea, which is h4, just to open up that beautiful bishop.
Yeah, looking from here to the current position, it's just like all the pawns exploded. Everything is been taken off.
And we said that e5 had to come.
Yeah.
h5, g4. Oh man, g5.
Ooh. Oof.
Jeez, Malise. So I think Ganguly is going to be upset with this position. It's not, there's all kinds of stuff happening, and we're in really good time pressure here.
Yeah. For the moment, white is just up a clear pawn, it looks like.
And I think the drama was we needed to stop queen e6.
You're absolutely, yeah.
So let's think about this. I would say the problem is less the pawn and more that king.
Right. I think the good news is black still does have a little bit of freedom of movement, right? The queen can come back to f7. The rook's available to jump in somewhere, maybe to c6, to start shaking things up. Not right away with queen e8 check on the board. But I just want to start with something like queen f7 and ask white, how do you continue this attack if I bring my pieces back?
Let's say queen f7. I would assume queen e4.
Yeah, and then this rook c6 move, I like it a lot, to set up this rook on the 6th rank, defending against any g6 ideas.
Let's just say calmly do that kind of thing.
Sure. You're more than welcome to. And now, for my next trick, I want to pass, because I can't improve my pieces.
It's rough, right? It's very rough. And
d5 is coming, right? And this looks like maybe it could be problematic.
Well, also my rook is going to come.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like it.
There's if you could get, maybe queen f7 is certainly a natural move, but you might want a little bit more violence. And in fact, that's what he does.
Yeah.
He
I
goes for
like this move a lot that black just played.
The threat of perpetual. I'm assuming, well, if nothing else, he's got queen e4.
There's queen e4. There might be bishop f4, rerouting the bishop to
Bishop f4
to
might be a clever thing, but well, bishop f4. I guess I'd be no, maybe yeah. White's got
quite a number of options. Well, maybe not quite.
Oh, this would really change everything. Ganguly lost. It's a shame too, because I thought he played so well.
Queen e4 is on the board.
That's the human move. Bishop f4 was interesting, though. See, I'm clicking on this. There we go, queen e4. So, right, it's similar to the variation we just played. I think white wants to play bishop e3, and black needs something right now to stop this epic crunch against the black king.
It's never good to see the f pawn, the g pawn, and the h pawn gone from the board with your king still on g8.
the funny thing too, when your king's attacked, like these beautiful pawns over here don't mean that much.
Right.
You know. Let's stay here for a second and see what Surya Ganguly does. 38 seconds.
Not a lot of time to figure it out.
These positions are just terrible to have to play, especially when White's next move of bishop e3 can be so simple.
And just simply rook f8.
Rook f8.
A little closer to the king, and maybe a few more threats on the white king. This rook coming
So
in.
one thought could be bishop e3, and then I try to survive the endgame with queen f5.
Should be 3 queen f5.
So
That doesn't look like a pleasant endgame to survive, though, does it?
well, let's look. First, you can't take because there's some kind of perpetuals going to
Right.
happen. I might be able to get fancy and play f3.
I'll give you the queen trade. Let's say the simple happens. I just want to play rook c1 and then rook c7. Yeah, I'll still play rook c7. Sure, and now maybe I can start coming in with my king. King f1. Yeah, rook b7 maybe. Actually, I don't know about this endgame.
No, it's going to be a draw here.
Yeah, that looks like a draw. Maybe I'm a move too slow with this idea. Because if I could put my king on d3 here, then maybe there's something to talk about.
Let me just say this from White's perspective. Maybe you have reason. Maybe it's fine to take on f5, but in general, I think we want the queens on.
Right.
So, so more tricky, I think, is bishop e3, queen f5.
I'm sorry, is
and
the
then
b7
f3.
pawn maybe hanging?
No, because oh, yeah, you're right. You could maybe even think about that. So, that's a true bummer if I can take that pawn.
Yeah, that.
I have some trepidation, I guess. What about bishop d4?
That's a good question.
Now, this endgame is also terrible, right? But it's not. It's not necessarily totally lost.
Is there a queen b3 check
Maybe.
that you have to worry about? Bishop d4, queen b3. I don't know if it actually does something, but... Right. What if I play... I want to checkmate you somehow, but it's difficult.
Well, yeah, these are all. So, you know, Operan's thinking. You know, I have to admit, I would just play bishop e3 and then see what happens. But he's thinking about it. And one clever thing is if you just see queen f5 coming, and you prepare both bishop e3 and your next move, then you can really make Ganguly sweat because while bishop e3 is the obvious move, after queen f5, White has a lot of different options. He doesn't even do it.
Rook b1.
He doesn't do it. That's probably why I'm not a super GM. You know, and let's criticize me for a second, right? I just wanted the security blanket situation of bishop e3 where I know nothing's going to touch me. And Operan's like, no, I can do that any time. And by doing rook b1, I really make queen f5 much more difficult.
Yeah, and
he still might want to do it, by the way.
Takes away some perpetual options, right? The king now has at least one flight path through the f1 square.
He still does it, right?
Queen f5 on the board.
So the idea is that if you snip, rook b7, I have bishop d4, and some hopes of counterplay.
Right.
So this is why bishop e3 is kind of like still necessary, eventually in any case. Maybe, you know, rook b1 looked real good, but maybe the bummer about queen f5 is now you kind of do have to take it.
Yeah.
Oh, this was maybe a bad move.
I'm a little confused at this decision.
White needs a good move here. Let's just say it that way. So it's funny. First I criticized myself, and now I'm like, I don't know.
Wait
Get
a
that
second.
security blanket going.
Sometimes solid is better.
I thought from
Maybe maybe White will take on f5 and then take a slow approach. Just bishop e3, rook b4, and hold all the pawns.
well, What? So
So this is, I guess this would transpose. But yeah, so this position, black plays b5. Well, wait a second. This is not the same position, is it?
well, we had let's update it here. So they did take on rook takes f5, which I don't even know what white's supposed to do there anymore.
So maybe just bishop e3, and then eventually, like, if rook d5, rook b4, I'll play king f1.
Let me say, the reason I'm skeptical now is, like, not only do I have this pressure, but if my king gets to these light squares, it's going to be a hard business. And this rook b4 is a passive piece.
Yeah, but I'll replace that with my king, right? I want to play king e2 and king d3. It's a temporary thing. Okay, and now rook b1. I want to change paths. Okay, that's very mean of you to do that to me.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I understand.
So when you traded queens, like the black king turned into kind of a beast, and
Yeah.
let's say that this pawn is on the wrong color because, white just has the dark squares, and you lose all the light squares, like as we saw with the king coming up.
So I might be forced to play something like f4, and that's not really what I want to do.
Black immediately played rook d5, which to me I'm not totally sure about. So let's think about what he's saying. He's saying rook b7, bishop takes.
I guess there's a rook g4 threat.
Takes. And we're saying there's nothing special you can do. Let's try that again. So rook d5, I thought b5 was fine, but rook
Right.
d5 is trying to end the party immediately.
There's still this rook b4 option, though, right?
It's passive. Once you play rook b4, I can do king f7. I can get there at a tempo early.
Yeah.
And right on b, also with b5, there's I can liquidate with. I don't always want to liquidate with e5, but it's a thing to worry about. So I think rook b1. Now, Grigori, next time just listen to me, and bishop e3 first. All right.
Certainly bishop e3 offered white more options in this type of endgame, right? This was kind of very forcing for white, kind of cornered himself a
I
little
think
bit.
he underestimated just how drawish this endgame was going to be after queen f5.
Well, quite a bit has changed in the Brandon Jacobson game.
All right,
it
let's
looks
take a
like.
look.
All of a sudden things look different.
Brandon, listen to me, buddy. Your king was fine over there. Look at this rook and queen that went over there ages ago to help the king move over. Now they're just like, oh, my man, come back.
Goodness.
This is all I know. All I know in looking at this is not what white wanted.
C3 is hanging, A3 is hanging.
I assume knight c4 is Brandon's intention here.
What if?
Let's look at a little bit. Let's recount. So I'm going to call this misguided, Brandon. You're a genius, but this was misguided. Rook b8, snip. There comes that knight. Remember how terrible that knight was before. f3, knight f4. Oh God. Bishop c2, a4. Oh no. fe, de. It's way more complicated than I wanted it to be. Bishop f. Oh my God.
Ooh.
Oh no. And Brandon, man. Like we said yesterday, after he lost against Nixon's, he was complaining to me. And he had to beat us all down in Bughouse just to make himself feel better. But I was trying to tell him, I have a lifetime of disappointment behind me, of chess disappointment. You just got a couple games, Brandon.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
Unfortunately, this one might be adding to the file. Adding to the disappointment file.
The disappointment file. Let's look at knight c4 and see. It looks real bad, but let's just see if there's any crushing body blow here.
So the queen's got to move. Queen's got to move. I guess simplest is maybe queen f8, because you want to probably keep an eye on that a3 pawn. I might be making that up, but that's my first instinct.
Sure, that looks good. I mean, this is just nasty, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, queen f8, there's threats along the f file, there's threats of bishop f4, there's threats of many, many things. For one, the c3 pawn is still under attack.
And let me say something obvious in this position. The fact that this bishop is of opposite color really, so it's opposite side castling, which is going to mean the initiative counts for more. And we have opposite color bishops, which is an added feature of the initiative costing more. So the pawns that Brandon has, are far less likely to be meaningful simply because someone's going to get mated. Someone's getting mated.
Yeah.
And what I meant by the bishops is that if black starts an initiative on the dark squares, white is simply down a piece on the dark squares. And this is a tender one, this is a tender one, that's a tender one, and that's a tender one. So that's a lot of tender.
Yeah, that's too much to kind of keep control of, I think. Black's pieces are already placed very well for this attack, and white's pieces are definitely not.
Oh, Brandon, it's so
optimal defensive position.
Look at this. Look at this position that he's. Let's just revisit. Bishop h6 exclam. Beautiful move. Totally winning now. Totally winning. Oh, man. Okay, let's move on.
Okay.
Let's see what happened with the count. He just pushed in Harry the h-pawn on move 40. And do I understand what's going on here? It looks like the count is toast. Is that right? Count is toast, right?
The count is toast? That seems like a normal saying.
No, I mean, not in terms of a saying, but just in terms of the position, right?
That seems also true. I tend to favor the side with the extra queen.
So let's look at what happened. So this king f1 happened. This is all time pressure, so all kinds of stuff. Oh, it's just unpleasant, isn't it? Oh, nice move.
Ooh.
Nice move.
Well,
nice move.
White found a way for his king to
not that much
somehow
of a way.
escape, but
oh, nice. Beautiful play from black here. Oh. Yeah, run away, my friend. Oh.
And there goes the queen, and
so he's fighting on, but that looks totally lost. And I think the real thing was we have two games here where someone's facing his own opening. So
right.
The count is facing the Grunfeld, and sometimes this is a psychological thing, and we've seen a lot at the very top level. There's this thing where often players are playing their opponent's opening against them. The other game happening this round is Sevian is playing against the French, and Sevian also, as an Armenian, you have to play the French at least once in a while. So he is a French player too. So that's all happening. Knight c4 on the board with Brandon. And let's go back to the top.
yeah, I did want to mention Jeffrey Zhang and David Howell have drawn their game.
Right.
So that does leave the door a little bit open for either Gawain Jones to win his game to tie the leaders, or Darius Swiertz is the other player in position to catch the leaders potentially. So
And
those
in
are games to keep an eye on.
Sure,
yeah.
and in Gawain's game, one of the things I said was that black would have a chance if he exchanged queens. And so he did exchange queens. And now, not so easy.
Yeah, that A-pawn has made a little progress, and
Black got all
I
the
think,
exchanges he wanted. He wanted to exchange queens, and he wanted to keep the dark square bishops
Mm-hmm.
and keep his rook on the board. So he's managed to have all those things happen to him.
you were talking about maybe the redundancy of having two rooks when you're
Right.
up in exchange, and
Right,
Black
right,
has
right.
managed to keep that in balance.
Let's look at how that happened. So, White played, I thought, one of the games of the tournament here with all these great knight tricks.
And
God, this was
A
beautiful.
great
That was
series
just
of
we.
moves,
This
yeah.
is where we left it, and this was just beautiful chess. Queen d5. Does he really have to exchange the queens?
why not something simple? Just queen b6.
Because our rook is hanging on b1.
Oh, well, that, I guess, is important.
Okay, so that's an important resource for black. That was right when we left it.
Queen d5.
I wonder, maybe... Okay, so we got this thing. Maybe queen takes e4 in hindsight is a mistake. It looks so natural and so clever because you go back and hit the c6 pawn. But the pawn on e4 isn't a criminal. You know, so some other move to keep the queens on might be what we're looking for here. Yeah, because now the queens come off. Now it's not so easy. Oh, yeah, we can get a... No, I don't want to put my rook there. Oh, man. Now White's almost like...
Repeating.
Well, he was making
Oh,
time
yeah.
control, but I think this is going to be very hard to say that he's making any progress. Because if you don't take one of those bishops off the board or a rook, yeah. So he's just going to be... Oh, what a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh, Gawain, I thought you had a great game.
You know, of course, even when you get an advantage, like Liam Lee is a 2,700 player, and any resources you offer him, he's usually going to find those.
Well, it's funny. It was Gawain who found all the resources.
Yeah.
And here, it's like he tricked himself. Like, we both thought this was an ingenious trick to win the pawn. But in fact, what it does is it allows black to get the queens off.
Yeah.
And then the black king position is not a problem anymore.
Right.
Oh,
Unfortunate
Gawain,
stuff.
you were doing so good.
So close. And how is Darius doing in his game?
Yeah, look, last time Sam was putting the real heat on. So let's go where we stopped last time, which was rook c6 is how I remember it. Somewhere over...
The rook came into c7.
c7, yeah, rook c7, there we go. Rook a8, and Sam said, yep. So at least I know where Sam's coming from. So, is it totally winning, or is it just clear advantage? It seems like it should be winning.
So by far the bishops are superior here to black's pieces, but I guess the question is, obviously the white king can't escape right now, and if he does want to escape, it looks like you have to maybe fix one of black's doubled pawns there with something like f3.
Right. So the idea, black's idea, is to grip all the light squares in a very cruel way, and then say that by keeping the king out, we will hold this game. Now, we're just beginning, because I think the king's going to have a couple shots to get out, but this is at least clever.
So someday, I guess we're expecting to see maybe h3. I don't really see any other way to break this kind of bind on the light squares. But as soon as you play h3, black, of course, can respond by taking and then just playing g4 for a second time.
Well, and bear in mind, too, that when we have the bishop here, he had the option right now of playing h3. So the problem, though, is, like, let's say this happens. Yeah, your king's still not getting out.
Yeah, the g4 the second time is problematic. So maybe he's putting pressure on the d5 pawn then, and this is his new plan. Maybe try to find some situation where you can threaten to take that knight off of f6 and be threatening that d5 pawn.
I just want to go back to this for a second. It
Okay.
just seems like White's got to be winning this without that much grief. For example, if you really... So rook c7, c8 is arguably dogmatic because the rook is a beautiful piece there. Our rook is. And we're trading it off with the notion that endgame should be winning for us. And I get it. It feels like a safe thing to do and yada yada. But here we have so many moves we could play. H3 now.
And maybe even bishop g6.
Bishop g6. And bishop g6 is going to play rook c8, but it's definitely a thought to play bishop g6. So this is maybe not the best. It's funny, you know, it'll be interesting to talk to Sam to ask him if he thought this was totally winning. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if White's able to find a way here. But we need something here.
This bishop b7 move, I think, is telegraphing the idea of maybe he's going to play bishop b4 next, and then if something like king f7, simply bishop d6 and bishop e5. And this might force the black bishop to either go to c4 or f3, which is not the ideal squares, I think, on both accounts.
I think the other thing we want to do is we'd like to force him to play b5.
Yeah, it's totally possible to throw that in as well, right? Bishop d6, and then maybe throw in a bishop c7, and then bishop e5.
And then if we put, say, the bishop on c6 after that, then his light square bishop will have even less moves.
Yeah, I think this is a great plan. I think Sam, in my opinion, is just targeting, you know, the weaknesses that he can with the two bishops, and then if the pieces for black get distracted over to the queen side, then that's what's going to let that king out.
You know, looking at it, it really feels like black's got a nice grip.
Okay, so I'll play my move, bishop b4.
So first question is king e4
Well, bishop b7, I think.
Right.
Is something to worry about, especially with that pawn still on b6. Actually, it could be a problem with bishop e3 check possibly coming to skewer the king.
The funny thing is, this pawn isn't such a big deal. It's only for that, you know, the double. Yeah, you could take it and then do your h3 thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, this would be my first instinct. Bishop e7, knight e8.
So I think I can take on g5. This is indirectly defending d4. Okay, my bishop's a little stuck. I guess I'll go to c6.
Now, okay, that's that. I mean, I'm just moving. I'm just getting the knight active. I'm not doing anything special, right? I'm just moving the knight around.
Okay, I'll play b3.
b3, knight a5.
Yeah. Take your points. But maybe I can play bishop e8 and force you to capture my pawn. Oh, I guess you might play king f3. I didn't consider that move.
Well, let's look at what Sam did. So after king f5, he played check to the miserable king, and this is I think good. We're just going to make sure that the king. Don't let the king into e4. Don't do it.
Yeah, there's no rush with these ideas, I guess is what he's saying. As long as the king is stuck on a place like g6, you can take your time.
So he went back. He trusted Sam. And Sam, needs to. Let's imagine. So we want to do the bishop b4. He does do bishop b4 now. And I think we're aiming for like a zugzwang in a lot of positions. So like bishop d6, tap the pawn, and then come back and say that this guy can't move, that the knight. Well, maybe the knight can move as part of the problem, but it doesn't have a lot of squares to move to.
To me, this is an interesting part of chess, is the kind of limited geometry, where there's not many pieces left, but somehow it's still difficult to get that bishop onto the diagonal that you want it on.
I think getting b5 is a real bummer for him. For example, on that h3 variation, if I come here and then back and then I'm touching this coconut,
right?
You know, maybe I got a little something.
Don't you dare touch my coconuts, Jesse.
Yeah. Okay, so that's going to be ongoing. Poor Gawain. Let's just witness Gawain here. Well, Did he accomplish anything there? Probably not.
Well, his rook definitely switched sides of the board.
This rook is immolated.
That is-
Immolated.
That's tough.
Okay, let's roll through some of our other games here. Let's look at Sam Sevion. We had the big question of how, if and how, he can make progress. The king retreated from his perch on f4. Put the rook on f4. So now notice, the king went back so that the black rook can't come in. And white goes back. Now, what if anything, is white's threat?
But this looks nearly identical to the position we were at, but I guess rook h4 is his idea, right?
Good, so let's play rook h5.
Can I play rook h4 anyways, maybe?
Oh, good move. Yeah, good thought.
That looks... Yeah, I think that would just be winning.
So,
Maybe rook g4 is an idea to keep the rook out. I think the danger there might come after bishop d1, and if you do capture my rook, I might take with the g pawn. And then my king can run from g3 to h4, and then to h5, and then I can really make some threats. You seem to have trepidations.
I'm just thinking about it. I'm wondering, like, so let's imagine this rook gets in.
Right.
It's definitely a bonus, but how? Yeah, it looks like a big deal, sure, because you got all kinds of things to touch once you get in there. So imagine if I could jump over that f pawn and go to f6. That would be an accomplishment.
Wow. So I do want to mention also in this B group, the two leaders, Operin and Ganguly, have officially drawn their game. You see there, the king's in the center of the board.
Oh, Ganguly escaped. That was a big one for Ganguly.
Yeah, a lot of danger there, definitely.
And I guess our critical moment was when Operin didn't listen to me and didn't do the security blanket move, bishop e3, and instead played rook b1, where the rook was, it looked so active on b1, but after this all goes down, you still have to play bishop e3. And I thought b5 was drawing as well, but this was the attempt to immediately, oh, this was his trick. Was it good? I don't know.
Not good enough.
You can imagine how white at least went for this as an idea. It's a pretty clever idea.
There are some chances here, definitely, but maybe not enough. Yeah, black simply gets the pawn down the board.
Great game. Great save by Ganguly.
Definitely.
And so that'll mean Ganguly is still at the top. Yeah, right? Because he and Operin are actually both at the top.
So they maintain their lead over the rest of the field. Nobody pulling ahead of the other one. And so what do we think? Let's take a look at maybe the standings coming out of this round in the A group. And let's see where we think everybody is going to stand. Well, maybe we can take a look at all of the remaining games here and make some predictions for what we think is going to happen.
Okay. So let's say with Brandon, your move
Over
queen
in the
f8,
C
by the
group.
way, you get to win that prize.
Yeah, it just seems like the perfect square for the queen.
And queen g4 was just played. Now, queen g4 it's kind of an ambitious move. Okay, wait a second. I need to understand this. So queen f8. Obviously, this is a problem.
Right.
Queen g4 is saying it's not a problem, or maybe there's nothing we could do about it.
I gotta tell you, I don't understand. Maybe I don't need to understand, but queen g4, free pawn, and an important pawn, and my knight's closer to your king.
You know what? One really terrible bummer too is if I get in knight c3, then bishop f4 is essentially a mate threat.
Yeah.
So on queen g4, let's just see what if the kid has any thoughts after knight c3.
I mean, he spent quite a bit of time on this move, so you have to imagine he has an idea here. Maybe he's playing knight e5?
But then the pawn. You can't move the knight.
Goodness.
I don't know what he's thinking. I mean, he might already be just really in bad trouble.
It might be dead. It might be dead.
Oh, Brandon, I'm sorry, buddy. I'll play Bug House with you tonight. You can beat me. It's fine.
Some stress relief.
So, but maybe the kid is very clever, so he might have some idea. I wouldn't put it past him that he has some idea that we're not seeing here. Okay, so in some way you're going to sack on f4. This looks bizarre, but just hear me out. So how about king d2? No, I can't do that. At least I don't want to.
I don't know.
I don't want to.
I don't know.
Okay, so we're waiting on that. It looks like our
What if
prediction is that he is toast.
Yeah, I would agree. And the only other game remaining in the C group
Is the count.
which of course he seems to be missing the lady. The very important lady.
And I think in general, even without the b pawn, this would probably be lost. But
Yeah,
with
White's
the
pawns
b pawn,
just seem
it's like
way too split to have any kind of a fortress here. And
Right.
of course the B pawn is the icing on the cake.
right. So I think
So in
the
B
count's
group,
been having a really hard tournament, and I empathize with him. I feel like, this is the count. I think is a little bit better than me, but I can imagine going into this tournament having the same kind of result. Okay, Samuel, we're going to say we like his chances.
yeah.
We're I'm rooting for the white player here. By the way, I think anyone who plays that win award deserves death. So this is a fitting end if that's how it's going to go.
Oh goodness.
And then we have
Just
Shanklin. Let's
suffering.
take one more look at Shanklin. He got him to move. Let's just go in here for a second.
Got that B pawn off of B6. That's all. Got to be, an
So we did
improvement.
it,
An
yeah.
improvement.
And now we're going to cruise back this way.
Keeping that knight under control. Although the D6 square seems open. It's just that king. How do you get that king to play?
Let's look at knight d6 because that's what he's looking at here. So knight d6.
Do you play B3?
Well, then my bishop's name.
Oh, well. That too, but...
Bishop d7. Oh,
Okay.
well, that's kind of... Here's... So the one question is... Well, that's winning.
Yeah.
Okay, so bishop d7. So bishop d7 is the answer to knight
But-
d6.
Okay, knight D6, bishop D7, king E7, bishop C6.
Bishop
Okay.
c6, right. In which case, we're just kind of moving around and around and around.
Right.
And we've accomplished our first... This is one of those... Sometimes you read old Russian books and they give you, like, some deep algorithm how to win an endgame, and they'll be like, step 1, make him move the b pawn.
Yes,
Step 2, free your king. Step 3, there will be a trick in the endgame.
Find the Zuzwang.
Okay, so he did play... no, he's still waiting. We're still waiting on this. So, I don't know. I like Sam's chances
Yeah.
there.
If anyone wins, it's definitely Sam. And then the final game
We
is
got poor
Gawain
Gawain.
Jones.
Yeah,
poor
poor
Gawain.
Gawain.
Although, not too poor. It looks like he'll definitely be able to hold a draw no matter what here.
Oh, no, it's never... I don't think that's ever been doubted. It's
Yeah.
just that the guy deserved more.
Yeah.
The guy
For that
deserved
sequence
more.
of moves, he deserves a lot, I think. A lot of credit, at least, if not the full point. Is he perhaps planning to do some kind of a trick? I guess it doesn't work here. I was having visions of playing bishop takes a3, and then taking somehow with rook d2, setting up some kind of skewer of the bishops. But it looks like it's a ways away, because there's always some intermediate check.
Right.
But
I'm sure that's the kind of thing he's dreaming about.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be back day after tomorrow.
yeah,
And,
so let's take a look
yeah.
at our final standings for today, and then we'll give you our final thoughts on the tournament thus far. In the A group, Jeffrey and David did draw their game, preserving their lead. Gawain Jones had some chances today, but was not able to really prove too much against Liam Lee. And of course, Sam Shankland is trying his hardest to pull out a victory here, to try and start the climb back up to the top of the leaderboard. And over in the B group, Sergei Ganguly has drawn his game against Grigory Oparin, the co-leaders. And Hovhannes Gabuzian drew against Daniel Friedman pretty early on today. The game we're waiting on is Sam Sevian playing against Igor Kovalenko. If Sam can pull that off, he starts to chip away at that lead that Ganguly and Oparin have built up. And over in the C group, Arturs Nykson still the man of the day, preserving his lead with a draw today. And there are some shakeups going on, though, between the four followers. It looks like Alshon might be able to pull it off against Brandon Jacobson. Yeah. Definitely a tough position for him there, with his king being a bit weak. And Aram Hakobian is simply in a winning endgame with a b-pawn and a queen against a rook and a knight. And so we expect Aram and maybe even Alshon to pull out a win here, closing the gap a little bit against Arturs Nykson. Certainly an interesting finish to the first half of this tournament. A lot to look forward to in the second half, with every section still fully up in the air as the players move into their second round of playing everyone in the event. Any final thoughts on today's games, Jesse? Anything interesting left to say?
I want to predict that the rest day doesn't make you feel that rested, and that as we move through in this brutal tournament, people will take more chances, and they're not necessarily going to be rational chances. When you're a little tired, you're going to do more provocative, weird stuff, and I think that's what we're going to see in the second half. And so whoever can keep their wits is going to have a better chance here.
All right. Well, there's certainly a lot of action left at the Summer Chess Classic, but we do have more exciting events to follow. Events such as the Croatia leg of the Grand Chess Tour. All of the regulars will be there, the world's best, battling it out. You can join us for coverage from June 26th through July 8th. And following that, almost immediately, we have the U.S. Junior Championship, the U.S. Girls Junior Championship, and for the first time ever, the U.S. Senior Championship. So those players over 50 will get a chance to come back in the spotlight and battle it out with some of their peers from back in the day. Of course, you can join us here on Monday for more coverage of the Summer Chess Classic. And with that in mind, I think that's it for today. Thank you all for joining us. You can stay tuned following the games live on uschesschamps.com if you want to see how the rest of these shake out. And I will see you next time here with Jesse Kraai.
Bye.
This has been a presentation of the St. Louis Chess Club.